Lawyers. What's a law that isn't real that normal people insist exists? In the UK, people often claim that if an item is listed for sale in a shop, then the shop legally has to sell it to you at that price. This is not true at all as the shop doesn't have to sell you anything at any price. Often as a gesture of goodwill, shops will honor erroneous prices. But they are under absolutely no obligation to do so. Probate attorney here. I've had many people ask me when the reading of the will is going to take place. I explain to them that only happens in movies. But one of these days I am going to have one. And hire a mysterious blonde wearing a veil to sit in the corner quietly. Then I'll tell everyone that she inherits everything. Provided, of course, that she must adopt the decedent's cute but troublemaking 6-year-old child no one knew about. Or she can spend the night in a haunted house. Her choice. That commercial use of a photograph means selling the photograph. Commercial use means that there is an implied endorsement. You can take and sell photos of Eric Clapton all day long. Put that same photo in an advertisement for a certain guitar without a release and you can be sued. There is a big problem now with that on YouTube and Bitcoin. My father, who is a lawyer, policemen cannot lie to you. This is false. They can and they do. I heard you were smuggling animals. What are you, a cop? You know where I can cop some pangolin? People that think it's illegal to be videotaped in a public space. I saw someone on Nextdoor complaining about my reasonable right to privacy in a public place. When someone was shaming 20 people standing together waiting for takeout. Sorry, that's the opposite of how it works. Sovereign citizen stuff. I feel like enough folks have claimed to be sovereign citizens that it's become normal. But no. Generally you can't declare yourself exempt from the laws in effect where you are. My first job while in school was as a law clerk was to respond to pro se writs of habeas corpus from prisoners. One of the first ones I was given was to respond to a guy that claimed he was falsely imprisoned because he had sovereign immunity. He had changed his name to Jesus Christ and claimed that because he was the sovereign, he was not subject to our laws anymore and needed to be released. I remember being very flummoxed on how to respond. I spent entirely too much time on that reply. An arrest isn't magically invalidated if the police don't read you your rights on the spot. There could be a whole thread of just misconceptions people have from watching cop TV. Miranda rights protect you from self-incrimination when being questioned by the police for a crime. It doesn't mean they have to Miranda you the second you get arrested. If you aren't questioned, then it doesn't apply. People also think it's illegal not to let them make a phone call after being arrested. NAL. But here's one that bounces around legal advice every couple months. The age of majority in Mississippi is 21. So people say your parents control your life until then and you can't move out without permission until you are 21. The truth is that the law means they have an obligation to provide for you until you are 21. You can move out at 18 and not face any penalty or be forced to return. Although the age for Mississippi emancipation is officially 21. This only refers to emancipation from a parent's obligation to support their young adult financially. In Mississippi, individuals age 18 and older may vote, enter into legal contracts, take legal action against others and be sued for damages. Similarly, an individual age 18 or older who moves out of his parents' home is not considered a runaway in Mississippi and is not legally required to return to the family home. Single quote. What duties does that impose on the parents? They just have to make the home available and provide food? In California, it's not illegal to discuss your wages with your coworkers, despite what your boss might say. It's actually illegal nationally for a company to retaliate for discussing wages. They typically just make up some other bullshit reason to fire you instead. Greater than make up some other bullshit reason or fire you for no reason at all. As California is an at-will employment state. As a former lawyer, UK, I lost count of the amount of people that thought jaywalking was a crime. Unless it's a road that specifically states no pedestrians or a motorway. No such offense exists here. Edit, to clarify, I'm talking about it not being a crime in the UK. It may well be elsewhere, Australia, USA, Germany and others. Too much American media. It technically is a crime in America, so people think it applies in other places. Not quite on point. A lot of people don't understand that co-signing a loan means that you are on the hook for the loan as much as the other person. The car gets repoed and then they are shocked that their wages are getting garnished. Co-signing is not you saying you think your friend is a cool dude who is good for it, you are saying you will pay for it if they don't. And they want you on the hook because they think there is a good chance the main applicant is a deadbeat. Basically, don't co-sign S for anybody. That's why I prefer the term guarantor. Because you guarantee that you'll pay if the other person can't. Even though many people think so. There has actually never been a Danish law allowing you to beat up a Swede with a stick. If he should walk across the ice on Øresund during winter. But, even though the law has never existed, it doesn't mean it shouldn't. No jury would convict you. This isn't exactly what you're asking for. But I think it's valuable for people to know, you do not need to wait 24 hours to report someone as missing. I would hope not, since every cop drama I've ever watched says the first 48 hours are the most important. If someone has to wait 24 hours, they lost 24 hours of that 48. The crazy thing is that they say it on actual true crime shows. Like, don't spread that misinformation. Fighting words is not a defense to battery. It just means that the government can prosecute face-to-face insults likely to lead to a breach of the peace. ETA, not to say that provocation defenses don't exist dependent on jurisdiction. But fighting words, in the US refers to an exception to the First Amendment. There was a big argument on Reddit the other day about whether spitting in someone's face is illegal. Hint, yes. It's specifically assault in almost all developed countries. Generally. However, there's nothing you can say to someone that justifies them hitting you. The guy who initiates the physical action or reasonably construed immediate threat of e.g., jerking your fist towards someone after threatening them is the one who's broken the law. Not the guy who called him whatever. The one that is the most frustrating to me, even though it's not really a specific claim that a particular law exists. More a rule of evidence. Is that's just hearsay. You have no evidence. Comes up all the time. In all kinds of contexts. Even lawyers love using it when it suits them, nothing but hearsay and speculation. Usually, what people mean when they say that is, don't believe them. They're lying. Which, fair enough. But that's not what hearsay means. Lots of evidence is just a person talking. That's what a witness is. It's why testimony exists. It's not evidence just because it's a person talking. Hearsay just means that in most cases, you can't have person A say that person B said XYZ. In order to prove that XYZ actually is true. Hearsay. Get it? A heard B say it. It just means your witness can only talk about things they actually know about. And, extremely importantly, it also doesn't count as hearsay when person B is actually the person on the other side of the case. Person A is totally allowed to say, person B told me, yes, I will commit the crime on Tuesday, if person B is the defendant, who has been accused of committing the crime on Tuesday. You don't get to complain it's hearsay if you're the one who supposedly said the thing they heard. Closing parenthesis. This should be higher. People don't seem to be aware that a single person testifying about what they saw happen can often be decisive evidence on its own. You can go 10 over the speed limit. My dad thought this was true as he was new to the country and quickly found out by a speeding ticket that it was not. This comes from the margin of error of speed radars. They have a 5-mile margin of error normally, and thus people feel it's safe to go 5 over. If you're only going 5 over and get a ticket, you should contest it, and make sure to ask when the gun was last calibrated. It's a law that exists but widely misunderstood as the concept of entrapment. If the police put a bait vehicle in a high-crime area, that is not entrapment. If the police are watching a bar known to overserve to see if there are impaired drivers at the end of the night, that is not entrapment. Entrapment only occurs when a gov agent suggests committing a crime that you were not otherwise going to commit. The case that really set the court precedent for this was Wild. FBI agents were badgering this farmer to buy porn for months. And finally he was like, sure. Whatever. Wham. Jail time. I believe it was cleared. But damn, was that dirty. Negligent motorcycle driver forced me to hit him from behind with my carry, was young and naive at the time. Never been in an accident until then. Guy makes me sign a paper that says that the accident is my fault because I hit from behind and wanted compensation. He explained the situation to my dad. And he concluded that the guy was obstructing normal traffic and I had no option but to hit him from behind. In the particular circumstance, the guy ended up taking us to court. Showed the judge the piece of paper that I signed. I explained that I signed it under duress and that he explained that by law whoever hits from behind is responsible for the accident. A judge looked him in the eye and asked him if that's true. He said yes. Then she asked him to point out which law states that. He just shut the FUPF that guy. I am no lawyer, but I don't feel like most of the villains in Scooby-Doo committed any actual crime. I don't think it's against the law to put on a mask and scare some trespassers on your own property. What if there's an abandoned gold mine underneath it? Circumstantial evidence. Often pop culture portrayal of criminal law tries to draw a distinction between hard evidence like blood at the scene or a weapon in the suspect's possession from circumstantial evidence such as what a witness heard or mismatched entries in a calendar that contradict an alibi. How often have you heard a TV suspect, when confronted with some facts, say, "That's all circumstantial. It's not enough to convict me"? The viewer is left with the impression that the facts presented don't matter and that the law weighs circumstantial evidence less. In reality, the law doesn't afford any more weight to one type of evidence or another. There isn't even a formal distinction in criminal rules between the two. There is an academic distinction. Hard evidence, also called direct, is based on direct observation and doesn't require any explanation beyond the facts themselves. Circumstantial evidence requires some inference to arrive at the important fact to be proved. For example, a witness testifying that he saw the suspect stab the victim is direct evidence of the action of stabbing. But that witness could then testify that before the stabbing, he heard the suspect demand that the victim hand over his wallet and the victim refuse. This is circumstantial evidence of motive. You can infer that the suspect then stabbed the victim because he wanted the wallet and didn't get it when asked. Circumstantial evidence is often vital to establish certain criminal elements like motive that can't directly be observed. But there is no get-out-of-jail-free card just because evidence is circumstantial. If your wife hears you plotting to kill her and sees your axe-sharpening equipment in the attic, your neighbor finds your copy of How to Kill Your Wife and Get Away with It, and you write an email to your brother saying, "I'm going to do it tonight. That hoe cooked my steak well done," you're probably going to jail for murder. It's irrelevant that you destroyed your axe, cleaned the basement perfectly, ensured no witnesses, and fed the body to pigs. Circumstantial evidence can be enough. In the UK, that it is illegal to drink under the age of 18. You can buy alcohol with a meal at 16, beer, wine, cider, and you are not breaking any laws if you give your child some alcohol in the privacy of your own home and they are over the age of 5. You can buy alcohol with a meal, but do restaurants have a final say as to whether or not they'll serve it? Good Samaritan laws aren't nearly as broad as people think. For context, I work in emergency services. Some people believe that "I was trying to help" are the magic words that can get them out of any sticky situation. Edit, Good Sam laws vary by country and state. And the medical examples are a little more black and white than others. Adding a non-medical example of what I'm talking about: imagine you're driving your car and notice someone on the side of the road who needs help. As you swerve off the road to provide assistance to this person in need, you incidentally run over a child on the sidewalk. After the situation is over, you're definitely not free from the consequences of running over the child with your car just because you had good intentions of helping someone else. Versions of that story have occurred, and the drivers have tried to use a Good Samaritan defense because they meant well. There is absolutely some gray area on the subject. But if your unprompted action undoubtedly makes the situation worse than if you'd done nothing, having good intentions is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. And a bunch of people don't understand that concept. If you live together for X period of time, you're automatically legally married. There are different time periods for different purposes. And being common law doesn't always have the same effect as being married. So for example, your employer might give your partner spousal benefits after 1 year. But division of property laws might only apply after 3. And all of this varies from one place to another. Some places don't have division of property laws for common law spouses. For example, no laws against driving barefoot. Mandatory addition, in the US. In Germany, while appropriate footwear is not directly required, you can be found at fault if your choice of footwear or lack thereof leads to your inability to avert an accident. I'm not driving. I'm traveling. That one is incredibly hilarious when it's on video and shared. Officer. I'm not driving under the influence, I'm traveling. Fine. I'll give you a citation for TUI then. I'm not sure if this would technically be a law or not. But, the way tax brackets work. I've repeatedly heard people in retail or construction say something to the effect of, I'm going to turn down this shift because if I take it I'll go up into the next tax bracket and so will pay more in extra taxes than I will earn from taking the shift. The tax system is specifically designed not to do this. Here's an example of how tax brackets actually work. Say there is a tax bracket at $10. The rate below $10. is 5% and the rate above $10. is 10%. People seem to think that if they earn $9.999, they will pay 5% of that, $499.95 in taxes, but that if they earn $10.001, they will pay 10% of that, $1.000.10 in taxes. How it actually works is that you pay 5% on the first $10.000 and 10% only on the dollars above $10.000. If you earn $9.999, you pay $499.95, but if you earn $10.001, you will pay $500.10. You earned an additional $2 and paid an additional $0.15 in taxes, 5 cents on the $10.000 and 10 cents on the $10.001 street dollar. Of course, there are all sorts of weird interactions between taxes and government programs. Especially when someone is receiving certain government benefits. It is totally possible for each dollar you earn to be taxed back 1 for 1, or worse. In that case, there is a genuine disincentive to work more hours. But for a normal worker thinking about how many hours they can work before they end up in a higher tax bracket? You will never earn less by working more. So just work as much as you like.